Hey guys, welcome to the Defending Our Blind segment of our beginner poker course. We are excited to have you here. This is going to be a good one because while we are talking blind defense, we're going to end up covering some very important aspects that carry over to all aspects of the game. So let's get right on into it. Our blinds are very, very important. It's the entire reason why you have a chain of events go down that result in a poker hand, because our initial antes is what creates the incentive for everybody else to play. So just imagine there are no antes or blinds, right? Like, what hands would people enter the pot with? Turns out, mathematically at least, you would only want to play aces because that's the only hand that's guaranteed to be ahead of everything, and you have to risk something to gain nothing, right? So for that reason, you're only going to go with the sure thing. However, blinds create something to gain, which incentivizes the betting and all the risk that goes into playing hands worse than the absolute best one. All right, so that means that every single opening range, every single RFI chart that you looked at is based on stealing the blinds. That's the entire basis for the start of a Hold'em or Omaha hand. All right, so just keep that in mind and remember that as you defend your big blinds, there are certain things you should know, and that is that you are going to lose from the blinds when you start playing, when you have a large sample size and you can look at your win rate based on position. You'll see that most likely you do the best from the button and worse from under the gun, because position matters, right? But everywhere you open in the field, you are expected to show a profit. Otherwise, something's really wrong. Why are you opening from any position if you're going to lose? Just fold, and then you'll break even at least, right? So every big blind, if you look at big blind only, if you fold it every single time, your win rate from there would be minus 100 bigs per 100 hands, obviously, right? And half that for small blind. When you defend your blinds, what you're really just trying to do is make sure that your win rate from those positions is better than these negatives, right? If you're losing 40 bigs per 100 from big blind, you're already doing better than this baseline, all right? So don't freak out if you see that you're a loser from these positions. We're supposed to be, right? That's just how the game works. So when it comes to the hands that we actually choose to put into our defense range, right, those combos are going to be picked based on pot odds and equity realization. We'll explain what that means in a second, but let's just refer to pot odds, right? You can look up the ratio in the article. The point is that if somebody opens for the smallest amount possible, which is just two big blinds, we're only going to need a little over 22% equity to mathematically be able to defend. And if they open around three big blinds, you only really need about 30.8%, right? So let's just take a quick look at what that amounts to. So here we have a range that, let's say, under the gun is opening, and we are dealt into big blind with all of the hands. So right here in our equity matrix, we can see the equities of every single combo in there. And we see that even kind of like trashy hands, like 7 deuce suited, right, has about 31% equity, right? A hand like 10-5 off is close to 30, right? So are we really going to be playing that wide? Well, the answer is no, because we have to think about how that equity turns into our expected value, or the winnings that we expect to get from playing each one of those hands, right? So equity realization comes down to a hand getting to showdown. For example, aces will have, let's say, 80% equity against kings, right? If two players go all in pre-flop, right? So every time aces goes all in against kings pre-flop, you realize all of the equity in both hands because you are always getting to showdown, all right? But now say that for whatever reason, one of those hands folds before. Then it doesn't realize all of that equity because it only materializes at the end of the hand, all right? And it's harder for us to get to a showdown when we are out of position because we are much more likely to face aggression where we have to fold at some point before seeing the last card, right? So even though a hand like 7 deuce suited might have that 31% equity or whatever, right? We're not going to get to chase all of our draws and see the final card all the time because we're going to be facing bets along the way, all right? So at a position, we typically under-realize our equity. So if you ever get stuck in a pre-flop spot where, say, you forgot what your charts say about what you should be defending, or you're just thinking a little bit more critically because you know you're playing against either a player that's tighter or looser than you would expect a reg to play, keep in mind of how likely your hand is to get to the river. Because even though you might be getting a great price, or what seems like a great price, you're not going to be getting to showdown where you're going to materialize the wins from it. All right? So, yeah, that's just a very complex explanation of how big blind defense ranges are made. But we have covered... We've covered how to get ranges for every other pre-flop spot, how to simplify them so that we are playing pure, and you can just go ahead and refer to defense charts, which are based off of the pot odds and equity realization. It's just some under-the-hood workings that we covered right now to help with your decision making when you're in unfamiliar territory. So some other tips for playing big blind. Remember, you don't always have to call to defend. Sometimes you can 3-bet, and you're going to be 3-betting optimally when you're against regs, somewhere between 5 to 14%. 5 when they are under the gun, 14 when they're opening up on the button, because that's how much of your range, I guess, should be value or value driven versus their tight early and loose late opening ranges. All right. You're going to find a lot of suited connectors and gappers in big blind defense ranges. That's because those cards work great at busting premium hands like aces, kings, queens, right? Always nice to have a straight, always nice to have a flush versus someone who has an overpair or maybe even a high set, right? And always remember to adapt. Always remember to adapt to your villains you're playing. If you're against nit, defend tighter. If you're against someone playing loose, defend wider. If you know that you're up against someone who folds to a lot of 3-bets, maybe you start 3-betting a little bit more, at least as a bluff, right? You want to adjust to raise sizes. We talked about equity requirements versus min opens. And versus 3 big blind opens, because you're going to be facing an opening size somewhere in that range. But when you are up against someone less traditional who's opening larger, remember, you can defend a little bit less because you're going to need more equity. And finally, pay attention to stack size and your SPR. For example, a hand like 7-5 suited, we just talked about why it's great. But the charts that you're going to find those hands in are based on 100 big blind play. If you're up against a short stack who, say, only has 20 big blinds, your 7-5 suited is going to be less valuable versus a short stack because you are much more likely to go all in before the river. You're not going to realize as much equity as you can against deeper stacks. So and some tips for small blind. This will be reflected in a lot of charts you see, but simplify your strategy to 3-bet or fold, at least when you are first starting out. This is because when you are small blind, you are still going to have big blind left to act after you. And when you flat, right? So for example, button opens, you call in the small blind, right? Big blind will have the option to squeeze. That means they will have the option to 3-bet, and you have essentially already capped your range, meaning that you've excluded the best cards you can have from your range. Big blind knows that you're going to have to fold a lot and just give up what you have, because if you had a strong hand, you would be 3-betting it yourself. So playing 3-bet or fold eliminates that dilemma. Use our range builder to help you make pure charts. This goes for big blind and small blind. And yeah, hopefully you understand just why blinds are so important, because they create all of the action, and hopefully you understand how important it is to defend them, especially when you're playing in tournaments, but that's a topic for another time. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Download it for free at JurojinPoker.com.